Welcome back to another team recap. This is our Season 5 team for the Double A Draft League. And as a special thanks, I have Glaceon, who is teaming with me on this draft.
Yeah.
Yeah! Botched intro. Anyway, so much like we've been doing on all of these, even though Glaceon doesn't know. So, guys, don't make fun of him. As we've been doing for all these, me and Glaceon are going to go through our team, show you kind of how it worked, what synergies it had, and then we're going to show you some things that we wanted to do that we weren't able to do, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, I think you should start with our, team building process.
So, as you can see, on the left side is the Pokemon that we built. On the right side is our actual team and all the Pokemon on there. So we have them on here. So what we decided to do is we decided to make a Sun/Psychic terrain team, which is very, very interesting because I feel like we had not had much experience with either, but we ended up making a pretty decent team, I would like to think.
Yeah, this was, me personally, this was my first experience with competitive battling. It was my first experience with doubles battling ever. Like aside from, the battles in-game, because I'd just done Nuzlocking prior to this, and I was, really good at that. But I'd never done competitive battling, so it was a very unique experience, and it was really cool to build a team that did so many things for, our first go.
Yeah, we ended up being... Were we first place, or were we just really high in standings?
We were first place for 2 or 3 weeks, but we ended up in 4th by, one, battle.
Damn.
It was, 11 and 4 were 1st and 2nd, and then 10 and 5 were 3rd and 4th, and we were in 4th.
Damn.
By, a difference of 6.
Yeah, so we did very, very well. This would have been my, second?
Yeah, this was 2nd for you, I think.
This is my second doubles, so I guess, what can I say? I guess I'm good at Pokemon. We're going to kind of jump right into this. We're probably going to jump around because we have a very weird mix of Sun Pokemon and Psychic Pokemon and some that do a little bit of both. So I'm going to start with this Ninetales. So this Ninetales, obviously our Sunsetter. Majority of the time it was holding the Heat Rock just so that we could have Sun Up for a little bit longer. This thing rocked Will-O-Wisp multiple times. It also had the Focus Sash very frequently. This thing was very, very strong. It wasn't super offensive like a couple of our Pokemon were, but it was a decent threat. You know, Sun Boosted Flamethrowers are very good. Solar Beam with the high power that it has. We ran a little bit of Scorching Sands in there. We also ran some, I believe there's, Exosensory. Dark Pulse we ran a couple times. There's a couple of interesting things that we did with this thing, which was a lot of fun.
I think Dark Pulse actually came a solid amount because we had so many Psychic types.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so this thing was very, very well rounded. It almost never was bulky. It was almost always fast and offensive. But
yeah, because it just needed to set up the Sun to get us into motion.
Yeah.
So we prioritize attack a lot.
Do you want to start with another Sun abuser?
Yeah, I think I'll go with our least used Sun abuser, if I'm not crazy, Scovillain. Scovillain was, a mon. We brought it, I think, 2 times. Because it has 2 kills and 2 deaths. We really didn't bring it a lot, which is weird because we drafted it thinking it would actually be really good for our team for a couple of reasons. The grass fire typing is really nice. One thing that was cool is we didn't have to focus as much on speed investment if we brought it because of chlorophyll. That was the thing that really made this thing shine in our eyes whenever we were drafting it. It had chlorophyll and some pretty good moves and typing. its move pool wasn't as extensive as we wanted it to be. It's actually pretty small, but the moves it got were really powerful, especially like Rage Powder. That was huge. Solar Beam with no charge and Stab was really cool. Obviously, Flamethrower, just like Ninetales, and this thing has a really good special attack stat. So it was something we thought could be really good for our team, but it couldn't really take a hit that well, and it honestly just wasn't great into a lot of the teams that we went against, so it didn't end up working out a lot. But it was a cool idea, and I still think it was a good draft, and it probably made other teams weary just because of its typing and its moves and chlorophyll and all that.
Yeah, we didn't originally want Scovillain. The two that we wanted were Lilligant and Hisuian Lilligant, and both of them got picked up before we were able to pick either of them up.
Yeah.
So we got
we had
Scovillain.
an exact order actually for drafting for this one. This is the only season of drafting where we made an order for exactly what we were gonna pick when and had backups. Like we really went in depth on this one.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun, I think. And yeah, Scovillain.
Oh wait,
I don't
wait,
think
I
it was...
found it.
Found what?
Wait, if you look at our pinned messages, it's on there.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna minimize your stuff. Pinned messages. Oh my god, it is on there.
Shout out. Oh wait, I'll get to the Marowak stuff later when we actually get to Marowak. That's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to our Sun Pokemon. I liked Scovillain. I think it did really well for our team, albeit it didn't look like it did very much, right? Like I don't know. I always felt confident in Scovillain.
Yeah, there also could have been a few battles where we brought it and it just didn't get to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, we won so much, so.
Yeah, because we're just so awesome.
Let's go to our next Sun Pokemon, I guess. This one's also kind of the same thought as Scovillain. It's Jumpluff. And this Jumpluff is very, very interesting because most of the time it would just be in the sun and then click Tailwind. And when it was in the sun, it would get doubled speed, and it's 110 base speed, so it would go to 220 base speed. So it was insanely fast. Nothing is outspeeding this. This thing was absolutely nuts, and it could pretty much guaranteed get off a Tailwind. We also used it for some Sleep Powder shenanigans every once in a while. Rage Powder shenanigans, I feel like we used it multiple times for. I know we won a battle because of it, I remember specifically.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an interesting, like, it didn't feel like a good tier 4 when we picked it, but I feel like it just outperformed all of our expectations.
Yeah, we didn't end up bringing Jumpluff as much as I would have wanted either. Like, it never picked up a kill because that's not what it was there for. It literally got 4 deaths because you can see its one move is Giga Drain, and we put 4 in special attack. Like, this thing was made to Tailwind or Rage Powder or Sleep Powder. Like,
yeah.
And it did it really well, honestly, because of that whole chlorophyll speed boost. Like,
yeah, this is one of my favorite support Pokemon, and part of the reason why I love running Jumpluff so much. We had a couple other options for it. I don't know if we ran them, but this thing gets Helping Hand, which I know we didn't run, but that's cool that I just noticed it now. It gets Strength Sap, which is very, very good. It also got, I think it gets Pollen Puff, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it doesn't. Am I crazy? It looks like I'm crazy.
Pollen Puff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, there it is. Pollen Puff.
It's like one of its iconic moves.
I was going to say, I remember using it, I think. But yeah, Pollen Puff was very, very good. I don't know how much we ran it, but it was definitely a lot of fun. And that's an offensive or defensive move, which is really good. So, yeah.
I think the only time we used it was to heal. But...
yeah, probably. I'm not shocked.
Alright. So, man, I don't get to do Victini. So Quilava is our next one. Quilava was originally one of 2 eruption Pokemon that we had. Rest and Power Camerupt. We'll get back to that later. But this thing was basically made to, like, it had a good special attack and it had a good speed. They were both 80, like, tied for its highest stats. And the idea for this was basically just to outspeed something with a choice scarf in the sun and get off an eruption and just wreak havoc. It didn't work as well as we thought it would. Like, whenever we were building this team, we felt so confident in this whole eruption strat, and then once we got, like, closer to, like, the battles and, like, did our first week and all that and then kept going, it just kind of got less and less likely. It's just very situational because you have to be able to bring it out and have it outspeed whatever's on the field and get it off, and it has to be, like, weak enough to fire, or at least not resist it to die or do serious damage. And because we're running the choice scarf, it meant we really weren't able to invest in our defenses or click any other attacks or anything, so it just kind of made it like a one-trick pony if you brought it out. Because you can see, we have other moves on it, but it's like, when are you going to click flamethrower, you know?
Yeah, and its move pool isn't good.
Yeah, that was also, that one hurt. Extra sensory was a surprise. And hidden powers, you can't use them.
Yeah, we couldn't use them.
We were a special attacker, it really just limited us.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. We did use it a little bit, but you know, not a crazy amount. Are we ready for the next one?
Oh my god. Yes!
Okay, so I want to talk about the pair that this is, right? So I'll go back up to the top later, but we have Victini here. Originally we had Articuno, Galarian Articuno, because it's psychic flying, and we were going to run expanding force strategies.
And then, newsflash, if it's not touching the ground, it does not get affected by psychic terrain.
Yeah, so we either had to Terra it, or have it hold the Iron Ball, which are both not ideal. So we decided to trade it.
It was restricted, wasn't it?
No, it was a tier 1, and we had Terra on it. Yeah. But yeah, so we didn't know what to do at that point. So we had two options. I don't know if you remember what the second option was, but the first option, because we wanted to be able to have our restricted abuse sun and the psychic terrain. So option number 1 that I was going to go with, if I hadn't had the Glaceon, was I was going to go with Blacephalon, because it gets an absurd amount of fire type moves that are very, very good, and it does get expanding force, but it's not a psychic type. So what we did instead is we went with Victini, because it does have that psychic typing, and it also has that huge V-Create that it's base 180 damage, and it's 95 accuracy, and with Victory Star it makes it like 101, so we're not missing it. We didn't care about missing it. So yeah, and 180 damage boosted by Sun kills everything. It's absolutely absurd. So we ran a bunch of combinations of moves on this thing. We ran literally everything. We had, Zen Headbutt, we had Bolt Strike, we had Blue Flare if we wanted to run it specially. We had Dazzling Gleam, we had Energy Ball. This thing just gets so many good moves. Scorching Sands is very good. Thunderbolt is very good. Physical, special, Trick Room. Like, we ran Will-O-Wisp on it. Like, this thing was just so solid. And
it was I don't want to say it was our strongest mon this season, because that might go to the next one, but it also might have totally been our strongest mon. And it was so versatile. It got such good moves, and its stats were like just really well rounded because everything was 100, and it meant we could invest in different things for different scenarios. So it was a very cool mon to run.
Yeah, it was so much fun. The set that we have on here right now is V-Create Eject Pack. So V-Create lowers your stats, lowers your defense, special defense, and speed by 1. And so what we would do is we'd V-Create, and then it would Eject Pack. We'd be able to switch something in. That way our defenses are fine, and we have Victini in the back that can just do it again if we needed to. We ran White Herb on this thing quite a bit just to get rid of those stat changes as well. Or, my favorite one is we paired this with Slowking Galar, which gets Curious Medicine, which on switch-in resets Victini stats. So we could V-create, switch Slowking in, and then we would be back to neutral speed and neutral defenses, and then V-create again. And what we did a couple times is if we lived that hit, right, we lived those two, we're now minus speed, because after the Curious Medicine we V-create again, we lowered our speed again. We'd protect with Victini, and then Slowking would Trick Room, and then that lowered speed from Victini would make it the fastest, one of the faster Pokemon on the field to be able to V-create yet again. It was a monster.
We had some really cool pairings, honestly. I think the other one, aside from Blacephalon, was Alakazam, right?
We did talk about Alakazam. I don't...
Yeah, it was a strong Psychic type.
Yeah, I don't think it was Mega, though. I think that's why we didn't go with it.
Yeah, no, we couldn't Mega it. The item you put on it was Choice Specs.
Choice Specs?
There were some moves you liked, like against Dazzling Gleam and Energy Ball and Signal Beam, and those are all really strong moves, and they hit the things that we were weak into. But Victini was just so incredibly strong. Like, you put a Choice Scarf on Blacephalon, that was interesting. But Shadow Ball was really nice with that stab as well.
Yeah.
You made some interesting sets when you were trying to pitch these, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, right? So Alakazam could be run with Life Orb and not take any Life Orb damage because of Magic Guard. We also had Focus Sash, obviously. But I think Victini, I think the reason we went with Victini is because its defensive stats, right? 100 in its defenses and HP are absurdly high. Like, HP just does so much good when you talk about...
And a lot of these Pokemon with, like, the 100 in each stat really aren't that offensively crazy. Like, they have some, like, cool moves, but they just aren't that insane offensively. But, man, Victini just hits like a truck.
Yeah, 180. And with the sun. We had the sun. Nothing lived. Yeah. I love this one.
So
You want to talk about the next one?
Oh my god. So next up, Kiawe, our Alolan Marowak. This thing was a beast. I don't know if there was a week we didn't bring it, because it was just so good that there was not a reason not to. But I should probably explain why this thing is so good. So, also it ended up with 19 kills, which is absurd. But basically this thing has the item Thick Club that it gets, which if it's held by a Cubone or a Marowak, its attack is doubled. On top of that, we had an 80 attack stat, so we would invest 252 plus. And then on top of that, it gets the ability Rockhead, where it does not take recoil damage, and it gets Flare Blitz, which means we had a 120 stab Flare Blitz with no recoil, doubled attack with 252 plus an attack. Things just didn't live,
and then
the craziest part is we got all that damage without having to give it like a Choice Band or a Life Orb, and we could just use other moves too if we wanted to.
Not to mention...
And it had a good HP stat.
Not to mention, Flare Blitz could also be boosted again by the sun.
The sun.
Oh my god, dude. So, this thing is a monster.
Like, there was just not a reason to not bring it, if that makes any sense. Like, even if, like you set up the rain, we still have so many boosts that it's just like a normal Flare Blitz.
Yeah,
you know?
this one,
it's like,
this O-Code, I remember in a battle at O-Code a Klefki in the rain from full HP.
And they were like trying to set up with it, weren't they?
I don't remember. I don't think it had any boosts at the time, but I think they used Rain Dance and then we O-Code it immediately. And everybody started respecting the Marowak after that.
We've almost drafted this thing in like multiple other drafts just because it was so good. And then every time we're like, no, we can't go back to it. It's like, it just... it's like one of those like bad habits. It's just so good that you have to put it on every team, and you're like, no, I need to stop.
Yeah,
But
the fact that we had Victini that was relatively fast, base 100, and then this thing was relatively slow at base 45, meant that we could Trick Room, or if somebody used Trick Room against this, it would be absurd, right? And the 110 defense is so bulky, and we'd invest the rest in HP to give us more special defense, more defense. It was so brutally strong. This thing, also, very important, it had Terra. We could Terra it into anything. A lot of the times, we would Terra Dark. Yeah, Terra Fire. Terra Fire. We ran Terra Dark a lot. We ran Terra Steel sometimes. We ran Terra Rock. Terra Rock won us a battle at one point. Oh,
yeah.
By the way, we didn't know how strong this thing was when we drafted it. Do you remember why we drafted it?
I cannot remember.
It's because it was a Trick Room Pokemon that got Belly Drum.
Oh, right. Also, we got it because it got Fissure, and then we found out Fissure was banned.
True. We did do that. That was also fun. So, and then we just obviously never ended up using Belly Drum.
Yeah, like, there was no reason to. We had so much attack already.
The club is
It would have
absurd.
just been stupid. This thing ended up 5th on the MVP chart. Which means it was the 5th best Mon in the entire thing. Oh, I didn't realize they actually had, like, images for all of these Pokemon.
Yeah, they have the
and
images.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I never actually noticed that. That's cool. But, yeah, this thing was just so good. I don't think we didn't have another Mon until 41 in the list. Actually, we like dominated like the mid like 40s through the 60s.
Yeah, all of our Pokemon were relatively even.
But this thing was just a standout, and it was crazy because we didn't expect it to be. Yeah, I love that thing. And
yeah.
it got a good move too.
Oh yeah. Dude, Stomping Tantrum.
So good.
All of that stuff. Earthquake we did a couple times. Man, Shadow Bone we did as well. I mean, dude, it's just so strong. Anyway, we could talk about that forever, I'm sure. Let's go to the Psychic Terrain oriented Pokemon. So at first, we have our Psychic Terrain setter. We did not have a switch-in setter. We didn't have Indeedee. We didn't have Tapu Lele. All we had was Meowstic with Prankster Psychic Terrain, which is not ideal, but it worked.
It was also a fake out Mon.
Yeah. So, it got Fake Out, it got Psychic Terrain. I don't know that we really ran anything else on it. We ran Expanding Force instead of Psychic, definitely. Because we had Psychic Terrain. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just a bot there to click moves. There was one battle that we won because a guy his only attacking move on his Mimikyu was Shadow Sneak, and we specifically sped Crep to outspeed an adamant Mimikyu, not a Jolly Mimikyu. So if he would have been Jolly, he would have won, but he was adamant, and that's why we won, is because he couldn't attack.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. This is our Psychic Terrain setter. Not ideal, but still a lot of fun to use.
Yeah. This thing, its special attack stat is 83, which is honestly not terrible, but we had to invest in bulk to get off Psychic Terrain, so we didn't end up using this thing as a great attacker. I know there was one battle, I think we used like Disarming Voice or something, and it did like 10% or something. And it was like super effective, and we just like sighed and it got annihilated. So that was fun. Okay, so yeah, Slowking Galar. We talked about this thing a bit earlier. But yeah, this thing was our primary Trick Room setter, I want to say. Actually, it was kind of a 50-50 split between this and the next one, but whatever. This thing, it was a really good Bulkmon, and it got pretty good moves, and its special attack is really high, and so is its HP stat, like a 110 special attack and a 95 HP. and then on top of that it gets Regenerator, and we put like leftovers on it. Like this thing would dish out damage because it also gets Expanding Force. It's so good in Trick Room because it's a base 30. Like it was so hard to not get off of Trick Room with this thing because it just had so much bulk. Like you just get it off and then it wreaks havoc in Trick Room. So it was really good, and it gets Scald even though it's not a water type, which was really good for a lot of scenarios, like typing wise. We got some clutch burns, I know. So yeah, this thing was really, really good for us, and honestly, it was another one of those things, kind of like Marowak, where we drafted it just for like a single purpose. Like Trick Room was the reason we drafted it basically, and because it got Expanding Force. Like those were our criteria. It was Trick Room and Expanding Force on the same mon.
Yeah, it was so
And
strong.
it was just so good, man.
The other thing is we ran Curious Medicine sometimes. We also ran Regenerator. Like this thing is
Yeah.
so bulky, and you could just switch it out and get HP back. It was absurd.
Yeah, we should have run Curious Medicine a bit more, I think.
Yeah, we
But
ran Leftovers on this thing. We ran Mental Herb probably more, I think, or Citrus Berry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we might have run a Life Orb one time, but I'm not sure.
I don't doubt us, but that would have been funny. Our next one, one of my actual personal favorites. I love this
I love
Pokemon. This is Runerigus. Runerigus, we wanted something that was a Trick Room Pokemon that was not a Psychic type. And that was basically the only criteria. And we ended up with Runerigus. Runerigus has an absurd bulk again. Base 145 defenses. It's 145 defense, 105 defense, basically 60 HP. This thing is pretty freaking bulky. It also gets Body Press, so its defense also becomes its offense. We ran that quite a bit. I know we ran Poltergeist on it a lot. I know we ran Earthquake on it a couple of times, probably. We probably ran some other stuff, but that's the gist of why this thing is here. And it just did so much. We definitely ran Ally Switch, Will-O-Wisp. This thing was so much fun in Trick Room. It held the Mental Herb most of the time. One time, it ran the White Herb because we meant to put the Mental Herb on it. And it was probably the only battle that mattered that we had the Mental Herb on because we got encored into Trick Room.
Like,
And
I don't think
we
a
lost.
single other team brought it
Yeah.
Encore into us because they just like knew we'd run the Mental Herb the one time, and it was against the last place team, which proceeded to come back to bite us because we were like smack talking in the tournament, and we were like, we only lost because we didn't have the Mental Herb, and then we got destroyed. Wah, wah.
Cries.
But yeah, I was also kind of burnt out at that point because it was a kind of demanding schedule and I had a lot going on, so I wasn't as into the league by the time we got to that fight, so that might have been part of it, just because I wasn't, like, whenever we fought at this point, that was crushing, because we were like, why did that happen, and we were like looking through, and finally we realized it was a White Herb, and oh man, that was annoying.
It was
It's just like the
brutal.
slightest overs, because the White Herb is literally it's the exact same model too, it's just white. So like it wasn't even a huge visual difference. So that one hurt.
Yeah.
And then we still almost won. That was the crazy
we
part.
Did. We almost won. We almost pulled it back.
We almost brought that one back. But alas.
You want to talk about our socks?
Dude, socks. So this thing was surprisingly good. We brought this thing for a few reasons. This was not really something I thought about. I know because it wasn't on our original list. And then we had some things like get stolen from us in the draft, and we were like trying to figure out what to fill in. And I know Happy just like one time he was like, "Dude, Sock is so good here," and I had to hear him out because you ran it the season before, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this thing is really good for stupid reasons. It doesn't have a lot of bulk, but that plays to its advantage because of its 125 attack stat, which is ridiculously high for no reason. I did not know this thing had a good attack stat. until we used it. And then an 85 speed, which when you invest in speed, it outspeeds a lot of things. And on top of that, we ran the Lychee Berry and the Salic Berry, which the Lychee Berry was for raising attack, because we had Sturdy. This thing would take a hit, get down to 1 HP because it didn't have bulk, and then boost its attack, or we'd use the Salic Berry and get its speed boosted, and all of a sudden it's outspeeding anything. It's a 125 attack stat, 252 attack, close combat stab. It just annihilated. And on top of that, it made moves that were pretty weak, like Knockoff and Rock Slide actually do a lot of damage on top of having bonus effects like getting rid of their items and flinching. And this thing didn't have the greatest learn set, but the moves that it did get worked so well with our team that with its insane attack stat and really good ability for the items we were using, it just ended up being kind of a beast, and I ended up picking 9 kills in the season, which is really cool considering it was a tier 4.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we did with this thing that aren't on here. I remember we would run 0 IVs in HP, 0 in defense, and 0 in special defense. And we would make the 4 increase the special attack, and we'd put a minus in special defense. So that way we would guaranteed get taken down to sturdy. And what would help with that more is we would just fire off a close combat, which would lower defense and special defense again, right? So we would guaranteed make it to sturdy, proc the berry, and crush.
I know, it's so good.
Oh man, I love.
I don't. There was one week we ran Inner Focus though.
Yes, we ran Inner Focus, and it was the same week that we ran. Runerigus White Herb.
Because that actually, I think that actually worked that bad.
Yeah,
didn't
because so what ended up happening, I remember the turn. So it was Runerigus Sock, and it was slow Sock, and it had, and they had Mr. Mime, and something else, and so we coachinged ourselves. We coachinged the Runerigus. Runerigus used Trick Room. They hit Sock with Fake Out on Mr. Mime, and Sock had a red card and ejected them into Volbeat, which then encored Runerigus.
Oh, tragic.
Into Trick Room.
Turned against us.
Yeah.
That was really funny though.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
the
a
red
wild
card.
battle. Yeah. So Sock, invaluable. It was just another focus sash that was so helpful.
Like without the focus sash. So.
Alright. Are we making it down to our Camerupt?
Mm-hmm.
Is it my turn or is it your turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. So this is our Camerupt, our Greninja. So originally we had Camerupt as a Terra slot because we wanted something to Trick Room Eruption. Because we had a fast Eruption in Quilava and we wanted a slow Eruption in Camerupt. And Camerupt came, so we traded Victini for, before the first battle, we traded Victini for Articuno, and then we were traded Greninja for Camerupt. And the trades don't go until the next week, so we actually used Camerupt in the first battle. And in the first battle...
We built it into our team, and we were like, yeah, it works for this, so no reason to take it off.
Yeah, it took 5 kills in the first battle, and we traded it. And we couldn't take it back. And so, since then, we've always thought, oh, any Pokemon that we think might be good, like it has a chance to be good, but maybe not. Like, it's just on the verge. It has been our
kind of like the wild card, so to speak, like the one where like this could go really bad or really well, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So
we always name them Camerupt in quotation marks. Yeah. We tried to. I remember the second week, like I said that as a joke, I think, and then we tried to put it in. We were like, oh, it doesn't work. And I was like, wait, try and put it in quotation marks, and it did. And so now every single team you look at with a nickname, there's always one shiny, which is a mon we think is gonna do well, and our Camerupt is one where like
it's iffy, you know?
Yeah, like it could destroy us or the other team, and we'll never know until we get in.
Yeah. Anyway, about Greninja,
Right, sorry, wrong one.
Battle Bond was banned, so we couldn't use that. We frequently ran Focus Sash Torrent for Water Shuriken. We also ran Protean quite a bit, and we would use this very, very weirdly, right? So we would, Protean Ice Beam or something like that, and then we would take a KO, get the stab on the Ice Beam, take a KO, and then the next turn, we would just Terra it and change typing again. So it worked essentially for 2 turns, basically like a Protean, like an older day Protean would work. So yeah, we used that quite a bit. This thing had some defensive capabilities with Mat Block, which is a lot of fun. It works. It's a double protect for the first turn that you use it. So you can use that to set up your other Pokemon. You can use that to get Trick Room off. You can use that for anything. So we definitely use that a lot. We ran this thing physical. We ran this thing special. We ran it Shadow Sneak. We ran it, we did so much with this Pokemon.
Rock Slide, I know we had that.
Rock Slide we had. I know we had Protean Rock
It's
Slide.
such a weird move to have on Greninja, but, it was so, there was just so many U-turn. If you wanted to get switched out, get a stab U-turn off, switch out, it didn't, it was just so good. There were so many things to do with it.
We also planned for us to use Water Pledge. Mm-hmm. So we had Water Pledge, Fire Pledge, and Grass Pledge on this team.
That was Grass Pledge. That was part of the reason we had Quilava as well. Because we got Fire Pledge.
And that was the only reason we drafted the next Pokemon.
CBC! Okay, that's not the only reason, but
I'm pretty sure it is.
No, that was one of your arguments. You had to throw a lot of points at me for me to believe this thing was good.
CBC. Do you believe it's good?
Yeah, I believe it's good.
Oh, okay. You're a believer now.
I think this thing's good. So Simisage was a trade for us. It was pretty late in. It was week 10. Oh, they did a typo. Wheel 10. We traded this thing. Oh no, we traded it week 6. We traded this thing for Furfuro. Furfuro was on our team because it got a fur coat, so it could take hits. And it was just kind of like a mid-ground Pokemon, because it was a tier 5, and there's not a lot of good mons in tier 5. We were like, fur coat's really good actually, because we could bulk out hits and stuff, but we didn't have a reason to bring it. And one day, Happy was looking around at the sheet, and he was looking at Simisage because he loves his pledges. He was constantly, it was dude, we can put Fire Pledge and Water Pledge here and get them on the field at the same time, because then it does the combo move. And I was like, okay, sweetie, go back to sleep. But he was like, dude, this thing has Grass Pledge and Spiky Shield and the list just kind of kept going. This thing gets a lot of moves for no good reason, and there was not a whole lot of reasons to not draft it, honestly. Spiky Shield's really good. It's Protect, does damage, it gets Knock Off, it gets Seed Bomb, Stab, it gets Rock Slide, it gets Acrobatics if we use a consumable item, like our Berry with Gluttony. And it gets, it gets Crunch for a Dark move if we didn't want Knock Off. I don't know why I said that one. We never used that.
We used Brick Break.
It gets Gunk Shot.
Yeah. Gunk Shot. Oh my god, I forgot. Gunk Shot. And Shadow Claw.
Yeah, Shadow Claw. This thing got so many moves, and its stats weren't even that bad. It had a 98 attack, a 101 speed, 75 HP. It was good. And it was just sitting in tier 5, and it got Grass Pledge, which we didn't use. And
hey, we used it once to lose.
Oh, we did?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
This thing, we got it kind of late, but we realized it would be really good for us, and honestly, we didn't even, there was a lot of battles we brought it to, and it didn't end up coming out for, just because it wouldn't have a chance to, but it had so many moves, and we gave it Terra week 10, so it had a lot of potential to do a lot of crazy stuff, and we thought this thing was by the end of the season, we were like, wow, Simisage is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely the best of the 3 monkeys, because it gets Spiky Shield, right? Um,
Which is actually interesting because we originally had Simisear on our list,
yeah,
because
that's
of the
right.
fact that it got Fire Pledge, uh, and I think that's really funny.
Yeah. Um, Looking back on the team, is there anything else that we missed?
I I feel like the problem is we got locked into our heavy hitters a lot. We couldn't stray away from them. Like, it was hard to find a week where we didn't have Marowak or Victini or Greninja on there, and it kind of limited our options because then we'd have to use their like limited move pools against a variety of teams just because we didn't have other things that could deal with things. So I wish we would have had more mons that we use. Like we had a lot of mons that could be heavy hitters. We just didn't use them as such a lot of the time. Like Slowking was pretty much I remember it way more for Trick Room than for Sludge Bomb, you know?
Yeah.
Or like Villain. It has an insane special attack stat, but we just didn't get to use it, and that might have been a problem with the mons that we drafted specifically, but it also, we were just kind of like mentally, once we knew those mons worked, we just couldn't get away from using them, you know?
Yeah, I definitely get that. And I mentioned earlier that like our tier 1 is a Ninetales. Our tier 1's a setup Pokemon. Our first tier 2 is also a setup Pokemon. Like our higher stuff are just complementing mostly the lower tiers. I mean, Marowak and Victini are definitely high tiers, but like, our quote unquote other heavy hitters are like Runerigus and Slowking, which are like, I don't know, not the best offensive. Same as Sock. Like Sock is kind of risky to use. So yeah, we definitely got locked into our two big ones down here a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So
But it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It worked out for us a lot of the time just because they were so good. I just, like, I know because we had, like, the Sun and, um, uh, Psychic Terrain, but I feel like we ended up leaning more towards Psychic Terrain and Trick Room instead.
eh,
Just because we had two really... I know we set up the Sun a lot, but our team wasn't built around it as much, if that makes sense.
yeah. I mean,
Like, it
I
was just
think
kind of like a byproduct because Victini and Marowak both just got boosts from the Sun. But I feel like whenever we were strategizing, we were focused more on trying to get Slowking or Runerigus to get a setup and when we'd bring it into battle and focusing on speeds of Mons. Just because we knew when we had Ninetales on the team, whenever it got brought in, it would boost these other Mons. But I wish we would have built more strats around it, you know?
yeah, I agree with that. I also think that like yeah, these two Pokemon are such standalone Pokemon. They don't have to have boosts. So it meant that, we could play elsewhere with Psychic Terrain. I do yeah, I don't know. I also think in this format, Victini was Victini was good. I loved using Victini, but I don't know that it was the best in this format, especially because its typing is not great, and
Yeah.
it being used alongside everything else that's weak to it just brought out its weaknesses even more.
That's true, because it's not like a lot of the things we paired it with, since they'd be weak to the same thing, it wasn't like we could cover it, since they usually wouldn't have moves to defend against it, since they were also weak to it.
Yeah.
Which sometimes there was just the problem. It's hard to argue a lot of these because we had so much brute force that we got around it a lot. But the problem is the further in we got, the more we started kind of running out of stuff, which is weird because we had a lot of strats. I think some of them were just a matter of timing. Like we came up with strats and then we didn't go against the right opponents and we never got to bring them out.
Yeah.
And some of it was just people had seen us done stuff, or had seen us do stuff in the past. That's better grammar. And it was just like they kind of started to figure out how our team worked, and since we kept bringing the same ones, it was easier to read. And a lot of these people in the server are like very tryhard, so they'll like look back at a bunch of stuff and do crazy mock battles, thinking of every scenario. And it got to a point where since we were just locked into like the same niches over and over again on our team, that it just I don't know if niche is the right word, but you know, we just kind of, it was the same strategies in slightly different variants, and it wasn't enough change for us to get anywhere towards the end. Because I know a lot of the losses we picked up were towards the end, which were a combination of things, like I mentioned earlier. Like, I was really busy towards the end of this draft league, So we didn't, like, team builds were pushed off more, and they weren't as in depth, honestly. And I, like, you know, was like rushing to fit these battles into my schedule, and it wasn't like as much of my attention. So it was already kind of like, just from like an internal point of view, it wasn't like, you know, there wasn't just as much put into this. But on top of that, with people getting more on our team as time goes on, it was just kind of like, from both sides of it, it wasn't as strong anymore.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna call it there because it's been 45 minutes. I think my other longest team builder is like 12.
Womp womp. We
So I'm
have
gonna
a
call
lot
it
of
there.
stuff.
Yeah, we have a lot
We
of
didn't
stuff.
even get to talk about cool stuff. No. Okay, wait, real quick. I'm throwing this in.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
our coolest move was when we led Runarigus and Slowking, since they both get Trick Room, to try and mess up our opponents, and we totally dumbfounded them. It was awesome.
That was pretty good.
I thought that lead was really cool.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Do everything the YouTubers tell you to do. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.